Admitting powerlessness over our problems is extremely difficult, and putting God at the forefront of our lives in the face of those problems is even more difficult still. Welcome to Breaking the Cycle. My name is Alan Hyde, and I'm your host. I ask you to join me as we unravel stories of recovery, shift perspectives, and inspire change in those who are seeking answers and solution. Let's get into it. Hey guys, today we're going to be reviewing an anonymous recovery story. And at the end of the story, I'll give some clinical reflections and talk a little bit about what was going on in this story and maybe pull some things here from the story that'll be beneficial to the listeners. Today is Patrick's story. There's a couple different ways that obsession happens. Some obsessions are just unwanted, repetitive thoughts. They feel like a really intense craving. Then there's a type that happens but doesn't have that feeling behind it. It's just a thought. For me, I could have been driving down the road completely sane, thinking, oh, I'll stop for a couple beers, and it could end up ruining my life. Patrick's road to recovery has been long and difficult, but in the end, rewarding. His substance use began when he was a teenager, and like many types of progress, his improvement did not always happen in a straight line. I got in a fight with a cop at 16 years old. My first rehab was at 17, got kicked out of it after 10 days, then back in there 3 months later. I had 6 or 7 months sober, maybe even a little bit longer. Then I went back out and drank. I got sober again when I was 24. During that period of time, I had 11 years sobriety. At 35, my wife and I went through a divorce, and a lot of stuff happened. I just drank. It would take me 10 years to get more than 30 days sober. I was in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that was constant. I would go to meetings and nothing would happen. I would still want to drink. Really bad obsessions. That went on for about 10 years. I lost everything. I lost a really nice house, my car was repoed, and my 401k was gone. Even though Patrick had hit bottom after bottom, he was unable to stay sober. Eventually, he decided to ask for help from his father, who had 28 years sobriety. I showed up at my dad's house with 2 gym bags. I finally said, this is it. I'm spiritually broken. I can't do this anymore. I was able to stay sober for 9 months, meetings every day, praying every day, really in the middle of the program. But the day came when I drank again. I went into rehab for about 10 days. And I just kept thinking to myself, I'll do anything. Please, God, I do not want to drink ever again. After rehab, I went to another meeting. A guy there recommended to go to someone's house that was having a big book study. I went to the house and he started talking. And everything he was talking about, I was like, that's me. He knows what I'm going through. So he started taking me through the big book and the steps, and I started to get freedom from stuff that was causing me to drink. Maybe the most striking part of Patrick's personality is his acute self-awareness. It's a trait that he sharpened while in recovery, and it's a significant reason why he's finally found so much success staying sober today. It was primarily my self-centeredness, my ego, and I don't mean like egotistical. I mean selfishness, resentments, fear, the things that engulf people while drinking, that engulf people with drinking problems. The steps are designed to look at that from a different point of view. There's got to be that internal surrender for sobriety to happen. It helps for you to be other-centered. Gets you out of yourself. It keeps you really connected to other people. I've been going pretty regularly for the past year or two into jails to meet with people who have a drinking problem. Even though I was never in jail, I can relate to some of them who are near low bottom with their drinking. When I talk, I describe my experience and what happened to me with my recovery. I say to them, like I say to my sponsees, we're going to go through this book line by line, page by page, and we're going to have a load of work to do. I get a lot of contentment from helping other people, companionship. Because of that, I have freedom from my addiction. Patrick found freedom by surrendering, taking the steps through the big book, and clearing the path for his relationship with God. By doing so, he reclaimed a part of himself that was missing while he was drinking. It starts with surrendering. And the first thing in surrendering is asking somebody for help, whatever that help is. And hopefully you get to a place that can offer the help you need. It's worth it. Patrick's story is powerful. It highlights the grips of addiction. You know, they talk about in the big book in the first 60 pages how they don't have a choice. Many of them have tried. You know, and I would suggest, just from a clinical perspective, I do this with a lot of my clients. I suggest that they read the big book, at least the first 60 pages, if there's someone in their life who's struggling with addiction, or especially if they're struggling with any form of addiction. It highlights the obsession and the compulsion. Truly, it's our unmanageability to stop the behavior. And what they highlight in the big book is that, you know, if you're struggling with these obsessions and compulsions, whether it's alcohol or illicit drugs or a certain behavior that is causing conflict or distress in your life, the only way to free yourself from that is to follow a simple set of rules and structure. And there's a lot of places you can find that. The big book's not the only place in the world where you can find good structure, but the most important cornerstone that they talk about is turning your life over to God, to a God of your understanding. And I think that's crucial. It was crucial for Patrick and his story. And the reason that is, I think from a clinical perspective, is Patrick talked about the ego, right? He was doing everything his way, right? He was trying it his way. And when he went to his father, he said, I'm spiritually broken. I can't do this anymore. And when we come to those places in our life, I've found this in my clinical practice the entire time I've been practicing as a therapist, is when someone comes into my clinical office and they want to get better and they're admitting their defects of character, they're willing to be honest about their struggles and say, hey, look, I can't do this anymore. That's when people get help. When someone comes into me and they're telling me, you know, I don't see the problem. I'm not really sure I know what to change or if I even want to change. I kind of take a deep breath in my clinical office and I think, you know, hey, this isn't a bad person. They're just not ready. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's you, that's okay. All right. What we ask is any therapist you're going to come across or any sponsor in a 12-step program is going to ask you to go out and try to control it. You know, give yourself some time, try to control it. If you can't, we're here. And if you can't, it's okay to ask for help. And I think that's a huge aspect that Patrick highlights in his story, is that he finally got to a point of surrender. We and in program, they often talk about surrendering to win, right? You surrender to win at the point in which you're ready to hit your knees. And I find this extremely helpful in every case I've ever worked with in my clinical practice. When somebody's ready to hit their knees and admit their shortcomings, admit that they don't know the way forward, not only will people help them, right, but they're going to be so much more ready to embrace the feedback that life has probably been offering them all along. You know, there's a really powerful line in one of my favorite books called The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. And the very first line of the book says, life is suffering. And if you didn't read any further past that point, you'd say, wow, you know, this book's super encouraging. Right. But the next paragraph highlights in the first sentence of that paragraph says, at the point in which we embrace that suffering, that's the point in which life ceases to be suffering. And I found that to be so true, not just for every 12 stepper I've ever worked with in my clinical practice, but also in my own personal life. If I can embrace the difficulties of life, I can find solution. And the solution is there. It may not be the solution that I like. And when I've witnessed it in clients, it may not be the solution that they particularly like, but the solution's there. And if we can surrender to that, you're going to gain a lot of benefit in your life. You're going to come across a lot of tools that are helpful and a lot of good people that want to be a part of your community. And I like that in Patrick's story, he highlights that part, you know, getting involved with other people, the companionship. And because of that, there was freedom from his addiction. And I'll say this, whether you've got an addiction or you're struggling with anxiety or depression, whatever it is that is your ailment, right? The thing that causes you distress in your life. Companionship is a huge, huge piece of the puzzle. I often tell my clients in my practice when they come in and we've assessed through the problem, we start setting up goals, that we should probably consider some community as a part of the goals that are going to help you piece together a life worth living. And Patrick's story highlights that beautifully towards the end of his story and his sustained recovery. And I'll back that up clinically. I would say at the point in which you've got a roof over your head and some food consistently in your stomach, and you're hydrated and you're not worried about those basic needs, then I would say the very next basic need starts to turn to the emotional community side of things, right? Our emotional needs are extremely important, and building a community around people of shared goals and a consistency with that is going to deliver you from whatever in your life is distressing you. And so it's not an end all be all, but it's a very, very good start. And what we're looking for, especially in recovery, uh, with our clients, is we're looking for a foundation. Right? I don't know how the lives of all of my clients are going to turn out, but I know that if they leave my office with a little bit more of a foundation, then they're going to be all right. And I don't mean, oh, they found it in the course of our therapy session. I mean, they go out week by week in between our sessions and practice these principles. They go out and they start to build a community. They go get honest with people. They go and admit to themselves and to others that I can't do this anymore. I've tried it my way and it's not working. And when people do that, there's so much strength to be observed. And they start to feel it, and you can see it. I've seen it thousands and thousands of times in my clinical practice, and you can find millions of stories just like Patrick. So if you're out there, you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, I'm struggling right now and I don't know what to do. Well, the first thing you can do is get a real clear sense of what your problem is. All right. Here's kind of the background on that is you can't find a solution for a problem that you don't know exists. Right. So if you're in distress and you know there's a problem, you got to find some moments of clarity to get really honest with yourself about what that problem is. Are you drinking too much? Are you using drugs too much? Are you pushing people away out of your life? Are you overthinking situations too much? Are you feeling really anxious and not doing anything about it? Are you not seeking any type of support? There's no judgments in whatever that struggle is. God knows we all have our struggles, but you got to be real clear on what that struggle is if you want to find solution. And so, okay, what would be the first step? And this would be my encouragement for you today. If you've got a struggle or a problem, the first step to getting really clear on those things is go down to your Walmart or Target or whatever store in your area, the Dollar General, I don't care what store it is, and pick up a journal. All right, grab a pen and start writing about your experience as often as you can. I know we all have jobs or we all have things going on with family in our lives. You only need 5 to 10 minutes, if that, to just sit down and start to write things out. If you start to write things out and you find, hey, I can't really gain a clear grasp, then you could always seek support. Go online and Google, support, mental health support in my area. It's never a bad idea to go and see a therapist, to go in with that express goal of, hey, I'm trying to gain some clarity on my distress and my discomfort, and they'll know where to guide you. And if they don't, they'll have a referral for you. So I would encourage you to just reach out. You don't have to suffer alone, right? Remember, life is suffering, but embracing that suffering is precisely when it ceases to be suffering, and you're not alone. We're here. There are good people here to support you. I'll be in your corner. I'll be part of your community. And I know many, many, many people out there who will. So if you related to the information in today's episode, keep tuning in. We're going to keep talking about this stuff, and I look forward to chatting with you guys in the next one. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of Breaking the Cycle. If you're looking for more information regarding the topics that I discuss in this podcast, jump over to alanhyde.com. The website will be in the description. If you're looking to get involved, make a donation, or to get your hands on some cool Breaking the Cycle merchandise, that will also be available at the website, and we encourage your support. Without your support, this podcast would not be possible. So I just want to thank you, and as always, bless your heart.